Redditors with thin walls, what have you heard in your apartment? In college, I lived in a crappy apartment nearby the school. That was mostly populated by students. Halfway to class one day, I realized I forgot a book and had to rush back to my apartment to get it. As I was running up the stairs, which shared a wall with the stairs in the next door apartment, which mirrored my own, I could have sworn I heard someone yelling. I ignored it and ran to my room to grab my book. As I clambered downstairs, again I heard yelling, and I paused to listen. I heard some unintelligible moaning, and eventually heard the words "help me" weakly groan from the stairs next door. I rushed out and tried their door, but it was locked. I totally forgot about my class and ran to the apartment management office, hoping that someone was there. A manager was, thank goodness. And after I explained the situation, she grabbed her master keys and we booked it back to my neighbor's place. She opened the door and the poor guy was laying in the stairwell. It was one of the ones that goes up halfway to the second floor, then turns 90 degrees for the rest of the way, clearly having fallen. I called 911 while the manager ran over to the guy. Ambulance came and picked him up, and I later learned that he had fallen down the stairs after passing into a brief diabetic coma. I guess he hadn't eaten in some time. I don't know too much about how diabetes works. Anyhow, to this day, I feel grateful that I forgot that book. That poor guy could have died. Slumped halfway down the stairs with his face in the carpet. Edited to add, also, relevant to the thread. I was grateful for the thin walls. Just for that though. Thin walls suck. Edited again to add, thanks stranger. Baby's first Reddit gold. My old neighbor was a cam girl and I could hear absolutely everything she said in every single session for a good 4 months. Pretty much learned the names of her clients. I worked from home and it was always a gamble whenever I had to meet with someone virtually. I once heard a former roommate laughing with his then girlfriend about how they're fucking me over on money. Turned out they were taking my utility portion and buying various games and alcohol. Instead of confronting them, I confirmed what they said with the utilities company. They hadn't paid the bill as 2 months, and I moved all my stuff out that day while they were at work. For good measure, I took myself off the lease and told them about the GF that had been there 6 months. Fuck you, man. If you don't like spaghetti, then you don't like me. I can hear when my neighbors vacuum. Our building tends to vacuum together as a result. I hear my upstairs neighbor and go, oh hey, I should vacuum, haven't done that in a while and it's already noisy. Then my downstairs neighbor and my left-hand neighbor start vacuuming. It's kinda hilarious. My right-hand neighbor doesn't vacuum with us, but does sing opera while doing dishes. My downstairs neighbors are a couple with a 1-year-old boy. The baby's room is right under mine. They speak so sweetly to him I'm not even mad that I can hear them so clearly. One morning the dad went in to get the baby out of bed and I hear him go, "Can you say daddy? Can you say daddy?" And in the tiniest little voice I heard daddy. My heart melted. Years ago, I had an upstairs neighbor. At 2 a.m. every night, I would hear something sprint across the entire apartment. I realized 3 things. It was very fast, it took small strides, and it never deviated from its path. One day, I saw my neighbor outside and I said, "I don't know how you have energy at 2 a.m. He responded with, "Dude, I've been working the midnight to 8 a.m. shift for 15 years. Doesn't bother me at all." That night, I watched him leave his house, drive off, and waited 2 hours. At exactly 2 a.m., I heard what sounded like 2 feet hit the floor in his bedroom, and the marathon started. A few weeks later, I see him outside. I tell him what I hear at night and he says, "That's strange. No one has my keys. It's just me and my rabbit up there." I once heard an argument that went a little like this. "Stop treating me like I'm stupid. You asked if seahorses were mammals. Jessica, they give live birth." My upstairs neighbors taking turns zapping each other with a stun gun, hitting the floor, groaning in pain, and then laughing like Beavis and Butthead. I actually manage an apartment complex where my office is surrounded by a 1-bedroom unit. The building is old and the walls are thin. The tenant that used to live in the unit was a quiet man but would frequently sing beautiful opera music. His voice was amazing and I loved it every time I heard him sing. Then one time I saw him in the halls and made the mistake of asking if he was the one who sang these beautiful opera songs. His face turned red, but he confirmed that it was him. I told him that I always enjoyed it when I heard him sing and that it would always brighten my day. Never should have said anything because I never heard him sing again. I've heard and felt the neighbors upstairs having sex. And apparently they like to rearrange the furniture at least twice a week. William, we do not hit. His mom was visiting. He was 30. Yeah, girl. You know you want this dick. My college roommate. 3 kids later it's apparent she did. In fact, want it. Heard the couple next door arguing. The wife was furious because she realized he had been cheating on her after she found out she had chlamydia. He tried to convince her that she must have been the unfaithful one. She still lives there. He doesn't. Not in my house. But I travel a lot for work and stay in a lot of hotels. So far my favorite was hearing someone banging around in the shower for a while, then this exchange. Loudly, hey, wash my balls. Louder, wash your own goddamned balls. Yelling, fuck you. Your pussy stinks. They got quiet after that. Probably because they heard me howling with laughter and realized people could hear them. In our old apartment our upstairs neighbor had extremely loud, theatrically enthusiastic sex in the middle of the day. The puzzle was that he would stop in the middle and we'd hear him walk to where the bathroom is, stay there for a minute or two and then walk back and resume in the bedroom. It was the same pattern every time. We could never figure out what that was all about. Any ideas welcomed. I moved from far away. So I have a different state license plate than everyone else at the apartment complex. A couple of days ago I had my upstairs neighbor drunkenly ranting to his wife about what he thinks I'm up to. He's convinced that I'm on the run from something. I'm just in grad school LMAO. I lived next to a guy who took care of his disabled girlfriend. She stayed home with a nurse while he worked to support them and pay for her healthcare. Everyone really admired him for it. He used to get drunk and tell her that if she doesn't start putting out he's gonna throw her ass out. An argument about money while I was doing the dishes. It ended with a slammed door and one of them on a piano, hitting the keys like a maniac. Some people read. Some people go get something to eat. Some people exercise. This motherfucker relieves stress by going crazy on a piano. LOL. My university accommodation had paper-thin walls. You could hear people having sex 5 doors down. And I could hear my friends' music from even further away. Gina, I love you. Gina, no. Gina, damn it, put the knife down. At this point, both the apartments adjoining to Gina's called the police. Gina's husband decided to spend the night elsewhere. 1. Lots of fucking. 2. My presumably constipated neighbor trying to poop. AKA 5 minutes of grunting and heavy breathing. 3. Someone snoring like what I can only describe as a diesel truck revving its engine. 4. A little girl practicing playing what I think was a violin every night for a while. 5. Someone blasting Middle Eastern music. I shazammed it and the song is called Mundi in Tabak. 6. What sounded like a woman forcing herself to puke. With lots of crying. I don't know if she had food poisoning, or was bulimic, or what. Edit. Apparently the song is Indian, not Middle Eastern. I honestly had no idea. I lived next to a couple some years ago and they came home after a night out and started fighting about who was better at darts. I thought they were joking, but it got pretty heated. Doors were slammed. Edit. Since people are asking. They were playing darts at the bar earlier that night. From what I could tell they were playing as a team and the boyfriend wasn't pulling his weight and was super defensive about it. Had an off night. Allegedly. The girlfriend was mad he couldn't accept she was better. I'm no detective but think they had some relationship issues bigger than darts. More what my neighbor heard. I'm a deep sleeper and was an even deeper sleeper as a teenager. My phone alarm was going off for 30 minutes and my neighbors could hear it through the walls. Assumed it was a burglar alarm and called the police. Waking up to the police banging on my door was confusing. I heard the couple that used to live next door go through divorce. Their yelling got progressively worse until I realized that their relationship really wasn't healthy. Once she mentioned that they had split up and that she was moving, I was like, yeah, I know. the way my old apartments were laid out. The neighbor's bedroom was right next to my kitchen/dining room. One night, I hear them banging. Thin walls are thinner when the bed is hitting the wall, while I was fixing dinner. I just turned up the music and continued on with my life. 2 hours later, I was cleaning up, doing dishes, and generally tidying up when I heard the familiar thump 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 of banging. I think, good for them, and bag up the trash to take out. Thump, thump, thump. I open the door and take my bag of trash outside. As I'm walking out, I see the male half of my thumping neighbors walking in from his car. Walking back from the dumpster, I see a half-naked dude running out of the neighbor's apartment. They moved shortly after that. When I was an older teenager, I had my own tiny apartment in the hood and a raging asshole gang member for a boyfriend. We would get in raucous fights and my downstairs neighbor would call the police. One time, I was crying quietly after a particularly bad fight that had gotten physical, and I heard my neighbor arguing with her husband. No, I'm not going to mind my own business and ignore it. I don't care that he always comes back the next day and she forgives him. One day he's going to really hurt her or kill her, and I'm not going to live with knowing that I sat there and did nothing when I knew a girl was being abused. I was naive and in love. I thought and ignorant and young, and I had never considered it abuse. That felt so melodramatic, but I realized that my neighbor was right. Finally left him for good after that fight. So, good looking out random lady in East LA in 1999. I'm sorry for being the worst neighbor imaginable. Couple upstairs would argue frequently. One particular evening, they had an epic battle. It was hours long. About 2 hours into the argument, 11 p.m. on a weeknight, we heard the woman shout first of all. That was the moment we knew sleeping wouldn't be restful that night. My male neighbor from India belting out "Hello" by Adele at the top of his lungs. It was magical. Someone sneezed. We said "bless you." They laughed. I used to live in a sketchy building and my landlord lived right underneath me. My landlord was a weird guy and there were all kinds of rumors about him the whole time I lived there. But I just tried to chalk it up to gossip. There were a ton of homeless people in the neighborhood. Which was fine. They were just part of the neighborhood and anyone who lived there knew them. A lot of days, they would hang out on our front stoop. And no one really cared or made an issue out of it. Anyway, I would often hear knocks that sounded like they were coming from the windows, not the front door. I would try to run over and catch whoever it was, but could never catch anyone in time. So one night I hear the knocking while I'm in bed, and it sounds like it's from the window right under me to my left, so I look down real quick. See one of the regular homeless guys in the neighborhood. And see my landlord open up the door and let him in. So I lay there listening, wondering WTF is going on. And as clear as day, I hear the homeless guy say to my landlord, "I need something to eat. I was just wondering if you needed a back rub or something." That's when I realized all the rumors I had heard about my landlord and tried to brush off were actually true. Upstairs neighbors were a single mom and teenage daughter. They were very loud. The mom's room was above my room. One day I had off and was woken up by sex upstairs. It was pretty common in the previous couple weeks. This time, though, someone came in and started screaming, "You're having sex in MYYYYY bed." Turns out the daughter had been skipping school and coming back to the apartment with her boyfriend. They were the ones having sex in the mom's bed. The fight that ensued should have earned both women awards. I could hear my neighbor fart, and when her phone went off on vibrate, it was like having roommates I couldn't see. I shared a wall with a Buddhist temple, so a lot of chanting and gonging. It was an awesome 5 years. My ex-neighbors never let their kids leave the house, and preferred to raise bubble children. The older son, 12 or 13, was pitifully fragile. One day I heard him crying because he shit on his own hands. "They warned me about you. I never should have married you." My 60-yo neighbors. And recently a heated argument between different neighbors' adult kids. The son had caught his son, 5-yo, playing doctor with his sister's daughter, 4-yo. They argued very loudly about it in their back garden, which is completely surrounded by other houses and apartments. I think at least 30 households could hear it. Edit, playing doctor means getting naked and comparing bits. The people above me bang at exactly 1 p.m. every day. I'm not here then, most days. But when I am it sucks. They have the squeakiest bed ever and it's so loud it sounds like it's in my room. Our whole apartment can hear it. They really to invest in a better bed frame or whatever. I heard my roommates having sex very loudly. I didn't say anything at the moment but sat them down the next day and talked about it. Turns out the boyfriend was at work during the time it happened. Edit, thanks for my first silver. I have never gotten one. This is awesome how much attention this got. My roommate talking to himself. I sometimes laughed quietly at his jokes. Edit, since y'all are asking, they're not really jokes, but just random, silly things he said. Our neighbors were once talking loud and I was nosy, so I put my ear up to the wall and realized she was reading him Harry Potter pretty enthusiastically, and it made my heart melt.